Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a knitty yarny podcast from the southwest of France. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Happy New Year, Happy New 2022. And yeah, I hope you had nice holidays as much as possible. I hope you are well and safe. And yes, I have a little episode for you this time. It's always a bit odd, the first episodes of the year, because since I took some holidays in December and I didn't film a podcast, well then I have a bunch of things to show and I need to sort out the projects that I am going to show you. So this, in order not to really dump too many things on you at once. So yes, I'm going to share a selection of projects, four technically designs of mine and one finished personal project. And in the next episodes or so, you will probably see some more of the things that I have knitted on in December. If you're wondering where some projects have gone, I might not show them now, but I will later. So, yay, I am going to start. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, feel free to look at that and jump ahead. I also put links to everything that I talk about, my yarns that I mentioned, the patterns that I mentioned, as well as my social media and my patterns that are for sale on Ravelry, Payhip and Lovecraft. There you go. So quickly, what I'm wearing first. I won't talk too much about it because I already mentioned it before. This is a design of mine. This is the Nestoria pullover, which is the free design that I published last year. This was 2021's free pattern and it's already available for a month or so. This is a basic top-down drop shoulder pullover. It just has a little twisted ribbing fun sequence here that is on the cuffs, on the neck, and on the body hem. Really simple, basic DK gauge sweater. The yarn that I personally use is Katia Yarn's Concept Yoga. So it's a blend of cotton and wool. I knitted this a very long time ago, but it's classified as Aran weight, but it's a chaînette type yarn, which means that the thread has been made into a crochet chain of sorts. And this makes it super light and really interesting texture. It's also multicolored. But basically, yes, the yarn is classified as Aran, but if you are substituting, I would recommend a DK weight because this sweater is worked as a pretty standard DK weight gauge. But yeah, this was available. I try to make a free pattern every year, and this was last year's installment. And yeah, I hope you will enjoy it. It was intended to be a basic, really easy to modify to your liking, and to use whatever yarn you fancy. But yeah, I'm going to continue for a bit with the self advertisement and show you a new design that I just published on Ravelry and Payhip, and it is the Piranesi shawl. And so it is a asymmetrical triangle, which is very elongated. This is one of my multi-textures shawl, but this is a simpler version than the other ones that I have published so far in this style. So you start here at the tip, and basically you will increase one every fourth row, which makes this a very fine, long shape that can be worn like a scarf. And so the mix of textures is really a lot of different things. You have alternating squares of twisted stitches and purl stitches here, which is the main motif of the shawl, which is really squishy. Then you have what I call waves. So I use 3 colors. So here and there are some stripes, some simple garter bits to introduce new colors. And then you have this wave situation here, which basically is twisted ribbing that goes and curves, as you can see here. We'll see more of it later. And there is a section of corrugated ribbing, which also offsets at some point. The shawl can be easily made in only one color or two or more if you want to have leftovers. But yeah, basically this is a section where if you use less than 3 colors, you might have to adjust, but it would be very nice as a monochrome texture play as well. Basically, this is a twisted corrugated ribbing. And more of the squishy twisted stitch purl thing. More of the wave, which you can see clearly here in the lighter yarn. And then we finish with a big wave. I hope you can see what I mean by wave. It's just that it does this, basically. And to finish it off, some very simple lace, which I really like. I had to modify it quite a lot so that it would fit within the curves of the twisted ribbing above, but I really like this lace. It's nice and textured and simple. I'm considering using it for something else. And we finish with a I-cord bind off. And yes, so the design is fully charted, and there are a lot of charts because I wanted to have individual charts so that you wouldn't have to follow up on one motif on your own. So I think the chart goes up to chart K, because I name my charts alphabetically, and yeah, I think it goes up to K. But don't be afraid by the number of pages. It's really just the chart so that you work one chart and then you go up to the next section and etc, 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 and you don't have to think about it. Like I said, this is a much simpler approach to the multi-textures thing compared to the other 2 shawls that I've done before. And yeah, this is a... Animals are fighting. This is a bulky weight shawl. So I don't see many bulky weight designs. Obviously, when you start knitting, you kind of use bulky weight because you want like big, chunky, quick to knit things. But in the design sphere, I don't see a lot of bulky weight. I guess it's also more of a cost. And yeah, so I wanted to try and use bulky weight without making it like a super chunky accessory, which is why I chose this very fine elongated shape. And so the yarn I use is yarn from a French indie dyer called Fée Ballot, which in her classic chunky merino, so it's a pure chunky bulky weight merino base, which is super squishy, has a lovely definition. Unfortunately, because of the C word, not that one, the CO word, it's not, she doesn't have it available for a while now in her shop, but she does have an alpaca version, which is, it should be really nice as well in terms of drape. But yeah, she's a really nice dyer. I like how her colors are quite clear and distinct, but they're nuanced in a way that when you look at her color palette, it all feels like everything would go together. So I do really like her work. This is Nougatine. The light grey is De l'autre côté du miroir, from the looking glass, it means. And the dark charcoal black one is On My Jeans. So yeah, I just really liked the 3 colors together and made this shawl. So yeah, basically, like I said, it is bulky, it's nice and squishy, it knits up so quickly, because obviously you don't have many stitches. But if you wear it like a normal scarf, it actually isn't massive around your neck, see? So I use 3 skein, so 300 grams. So it's really nice and warm and yeah, squishy. It's a squishy shawl. But it's not too massive, which I'm really happy about, and which is why, sorry, I through the shawl on the tripod, which is really what I was hoping for. And yes, so there are many yarn alternatives that I'm thinking about. You can have a look at my tester's version if you want some inspiration. But, for example, I think Nutiden would work quite lovely. There is Fancy, which is a French mill yarn. They have a yarn that is mixed wool, merino wool, and alpaca in a bulky way. It's called Fancy Paul. And it's like really soft and bouncy. I think that would work really well. If you would like to try a more fuzzy halo type of texture to sort of blend things, maybe Holzgarn Cielo would work quite well, which is their soufflé type of air, really big bulky yarn from Holzgarn. And yeah, I think it's Drops Alaska, that's like the really chunky one. And I think Knit Picks has a wool of the end is bulky. So yeah, lots of options to try from. And I'm very happy with the shape of the shawl and with the sequence of color and textures. And I hope you like it too. So if you do, there is 15% off on Ravelry for the release with the code Piranesi. And it's also available on PayHip with the Pay What Works system, and the starting price is slightly lower than the average price on Ravelry, so that you can so that the patterns are a bit more accessible if needed. But yeah, I will put all the links in the description. And I thought I would say where I got the name from. I don't always talk about it because I never know what is interesting to you. And like whenever even in podcasts where I only talk about the designs and the yarn, sometimes people still feel like I'm talking about useless stuff. So I don't know. But sometimes I do like to tell you when there is actually a reason behind the name and it's not just a random I thought it sounded nice. But here there is something. So Piranesi, you may know probably, or not, I didn't, is an Italian architect, artist, sculptor, and engraver, graving stuff. And basically I read a book last year called Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and I really liked it. It's typically the type of book that I enjoyed. It's magical realism of sorts. It's like a mystery. It's a pretty prose with an ambience. Like the intrigue is not that spectacular, but the thing is you get very little information at once, and it's just about the mood and the atmosphere in the book. And I really love that book. And in the book, the main character is called Piranesi, and basically the place where the book happens, the setting, is inspired by the works of that Italian architect. And so I went on to look to his work because I was curious, and it's really, I really liked, like, it really is interesting. He seemed to have made like really odd, eerie looking drawings, like landscapes of the cities of Italy with like all the old monuments, sculptures and statues, but all like very cluttered and messy with lots of flourishing nature as well. And basically something that is cluttered and structural and playing with, I guess, architectural notions. And I just found that really interesting. And as I was making this shawl, you see all the geometric things that get repeated, the shapes, the stacking, offsetted things, and like just the multitude of geometric structural motif just made me think of that. And so I decided to name it after that. So that's the story behind the name. And yeah, I'm curious what you think of this artist, of this art, if you're curious to have a look. But I just thought it was perhaps interesting to tell you the thought process behind the name, because I'm happy that for once I actually have a story. Like I said, most of the times it's just that I thought about it and it sounded nice. But here there's actually a reasoning, and I'm proud of it for once. So yes, that's it for Piranesi. Let me know also about the bulky yarn. Do you like knitting bulky yarns? Like, I'm really curious what works for people with bulky weight yarns. What kind of projects you prefer, like, and I'm going to move on to my next project, which is another design of mine. Never-ending self-advertising. This is annoying because it clickles. I hope you can't hear it. And going to make it work. I participated in a collection, a magazine for the holidays, concocted. Do you say that in English? I don't know. Made by Les Chevaux Solidaires, aka the charity Skein, which is a French association who collects funds for medical research against fibrous dysplasia. And basically they have a yarn brand and they sell their own hand-dyed yarns, usually with really interesting bases, basically. And they sometimes ask designers to gift some designs to collect funds, basically, for the association. And for the holidays, Lily, which is the founder behind the charity Skein, she creates a holiday box, of like Christmas mystery gift box, where you get yarn, lots of merchandise, goodies, and a big chunky magazine, which is in French, and it contains 11 designs and a lot of editorial content, poetry, interviews, a lot of things revolving around crafts and yarn art, fiber art. And if you do read French, the digital version of it, the ebook, is available on Ravelry. You can buy it, and the profits go to the charity Skein when you buy the complete ebook. And you have 11 beautiful patterns, which I encourage you to look at. I will link it in the description. So it is only in French though. And I am very happy to have participated in it again. I did it already last year, and basically I also have a design in this magazine, which is also available individually on Ravelry and Payhip now. And it is the Othala vest or tank top. I found it interesting to have a design that would work either as a winter knit or as a summer top. And so basically the yarn that was provided with the charity Skein box, from which we had to create our designs, was a huge 500 gram skein of Corriedale DK weight. And we could have a little contrasting skein as well. And so what I did is this very simple reverse stockinette vest or tank top. Basically, you start at the bottom with the hems, which are split and longer on the back. Basically, you cast on with I keep saying basically, I need to start like finding new vocabulary. You cast on with the contrast color, and then you change to the main color. You join in the round, and basically you knit inside out, so that you actually knit in the round, but the right side of the vest is actually reverse stockinette. And then pretty basic, you go up until the underarms, and then you separate front and back and you knit them flat, and you make a really round neck shaping, and then you pick up stitches for the neckline and the armhole cuffs thingy to work in ribbing. And optional is a little embroidery at the bottom. So the theme around the magazine and the box was sort of folkloric traditions from Europe. And so there were some designs that are inspired by Celtic traditions, and some others that are more inspired by runes and like Nordic folklore things, which is what I did. And I embroidered some runes at the bottom all around the vest or tank top. So this is optional, obviously, because you have a very simple basic tank top, if not with a split hem, because hips. But yeah, so this is Othala, and yes, like I said, it is available on Ravelry and on PayHip as a single download in English as well. So yeah, you could make it as a winter vest if you're using a more wintry fiber, or my hair is taking a life of its own. It's too long. And you could also make it in summery yarns for a more proper tank top or sleeveless top. And that's it. Now I am going to move on to some of my personal work finished project, which, if you have watched the little Vlogmases episodes that I did over December, you may have noticed that at some point I kind of just decided to knit a Christmas full-on colorwork sweater in 4 days, because why not? So, background story is that I have been haunted by the idea of red and pink colorwork. I think first I've seen it on a series. Someone was wearing a red and pink plaid colorwork jumper, and it looked very kitschy, but nice at the same time. And then I kept seeing in commercial brands red and pink colorwork knitwear, and it just kind of got into my head, and I think it looks cool, and I kind of want to make a red and pink colorwork project. And so I had this in the back of my mind, and then mid-December, Skeindeer Knits, which you probably know, the designer, Norwegian designer, who makes a lot of both traditional colorwork, Nordic-inspired designs, but she also has nice summer range tops collections. And she released the Festive Yoke sweater and cardigan. It comes as both. And it was just perfect. It's like the perfect Christmas sweater. So I just connected the two things, and I decided I would knit it in red and pink. And so that's what I did. And I am so happy with it. I'm super, super happy with it. So this is a very simple construction, very straightforward. And basically you knit it top down. You have short rows on the back. And yeah, I just started knitting on it. And at first, I wasn't planning to knit it for Christmas, because I started it just the week before. But I couldn't stop knitting on it. And at some point it became very clear, I'm just going to actually finish it, even if I don't do it on purpose. So yeah, this was my Christmas outfit. And I really love it. So the motifs are great. They're really small and simple and easy to remember. It's just 10, 11 stitches with, and it's really simple, mindless to knit. And there are a lot to choose from, basically. There, in the pattern, there's a lot of different types of motifs. There are hearts, more tree shapes, like balloons, gifts as well. Yeah, so it's really fun. You can really make up your own. You can knit it as just a yoke and then stop here, or as a full-on colorwork. I really liked the yoke that was in the designer's sample, so I just followed the same thing. Basically, what I really like is the alternating of more geometric rose or star-like motifs with more figurative, Christmassy looking, wintry things, motifs. So see here you have like this star, then this sort of geometric shapes. And then in between you have a more kitsch looking thing, like trees and the reindeers. And on the sleeves, because they're a bit longer, I have these crowns and more geometric simple flowers at the bottom. And yeah, I really love that. It was really nice, really mindless to work. And yeah, I really like how the pattern is made. Like, it's like really cleverly made. It's like the perfect in between the more minimalistic Scandinavian type of writing patterns and a more hand-holding, you don't need to do your own math way. I'm gonna give an example, it's gonna be much clearer. For example, for the yoke, you have some increase rounds in between the motifs. Typically, in some traditional Scandinavian patterns, it would say increase X stitches evenly across the round. And you have to figure it out yourself. It's not super complicated, but you do have to figure it out yourself. In this pattern, there are both options, basically. The pattern tells you increase evenly. So if you just want the minimalistic route, you can just take that like 2-page instructions of the pattern and go with it. But if you don't want to make your own math, later in the pattern, you actually have the detail of, okay, increase evenly. If you don't want to figure it out for yourself, that's how you do it. Yeah, that's great. This way you have both approaches, and I thought that was really clever. And yeah, so I don't know what else to say besides that I love it. I did modify a bit, mostly for sizing issues. No, issues. It's not issues. I really love because of how simple the construction is, you can very easily adjust for fit preferences, basically. So I was in between sizes. Basically, the pattern recommends very little ease, which I really like the vintage classic look that it has, so I wanted that. But basically, if I knitted size 2, it would have been a tad too small on the bust and way too small on the arms. I keep saying it from time to time, so let's continue the new year in the same vein and say that again. My upper arm is measurement is way larger than the standard thing for my bust size. If I look at the standard measurements, my upper arm is like a good 2 sizes, possibly 3 sizes larger than my bust. So, and on top of that, I really hate tight-fitting sleeves. I really don't like it. So if I knitted size 2, it would have been okay, though perhaps a bit small on the bust, but definitely too small on the arm. And if I knitted size 3, it would have been okay on the arms, but too big on the bust. So basically, I just knit at a tighter gauge, which also worked with the yarn that I used, I will tell you. I think the pattern's gauge is 24 stitches. I knitted at 25 stitches. So basically, my sweater is at about 95 centimeter bust circumference, which is in between size 2 and 3. So that's great. And I also changed the sleeve a little bit, because if I knitted it per the pattern, it would have been a bit too long for me, and also too tight. I don't really like tight sleeves. So I just spaced out the decreases more, mostly to decrease less quickly, and also to compensate for my row gauge, which was also tighter as a consequence of me knitting tighter than the patterns intended. And basically this means that when I stopped the sleeves, I wasn't at the same stitch count than the patterns, and so I basically did a quick few sets of decreases here just before the ribbing cuff, and I knitted the ribbing a little bit longer and stopped it at a bracelet length. And I love it. I love it. I really it was exactly what I wanted. Like a really fun, simple construction with lots of cool motifs, little motifs that were super quick to knit and really fun and easy to adjust for my personal situation. And I just love the result. I blocked it because I wore it during Christmas days, but it wasn't blocked because I wouldn't have had time to let it dry. But now it's blocked it and it's so nice and lovely. So the yarn that I use is Filcolana Pernilla, which I will never stop telling you to try this yarn if you can. It's a Danish brand, and I think, yeah. And I really love it. So it's a pure wool. It's super wash and it's worsted spun, but it works so well for color work. It's like if you want a good looking colorwork yarn that is not too sleek but is also very soft, this is perfect. It is super soft, much softer than most typical rustic colorwork yarn, which I love, but I know it's not the case for everyone. And the Pernilla yarn, especially if you knit it at a rather dense gauge, it looks so perfect. And it's a sport weight yarn, so it has 175 meters per 50 grams. It has a gorgeous range of colors. There's like really good gradients of different shades. Like I couldn't choose, I didn't know which pink I wanted, so I actually ordered 2 pinks. Because yeah, there's actual gradients, so you can really choose between a lot of different specific colors. And yeah, I really like it. It also works so well at a variety of different gauges, which is quite unusual for this type of yarn. I used it for a design that will come later in March, and it's a cabled jumper, and it looks stunning in the texture. And it also is knitted quite loose because there are stockinette portions on the sweater, and it's super loose. It's like 19 stitches per 10 centimeter, and the fabric looks great. It's not see-through, it's nice and airy, but it's still warm. And here it's at 25 stitches, and it's also not stiff at all. It works really well for different techniques and different gauges, and I really like it. Pernilla is the sport weight version, and then you have Peruvian Highland wool, which is the worsted weight version, which is the same yarn basically. And I love it, and it works really well. I think the colors are used are like the dark burgundy is 804, and I think the pink is 370, but I'm not sure. So maybe it's 870. I don't know. I will write it down in the video description just in case. But yeah, lovely yarn, lovely design. I'm really pleased with it, really happy. I think it looks super cool. And yeah, that's it for that. And the last project I want to show you is a sweater that I knitted my mother's for Christmas, and it's she wore it yesterday, and she put some perfume on, and I hate her perfume, which is weird because it's the perfume that she always had even when I was a baby, and technically like smells that you were close to when you were a baby usually are kind of nice and nostalgic. I just hate that perfume. It's too strong. It gives me headaches. I don't know what that says on a psychological level, that I hate the perfume that my mom always wore, even when I was a baby. But there you go. So I'm gonna have a hard time breathing. But basically, I'm joking. It's not that bad. But I wanted to make her a sweater as a gift. And I had a bunch of leftover fingering weight yarns, which were blue, green, grey, all in similar color range, but not exactly the same. And so I gathered all of them. And what I really liked doing to kind of blend colors together is marling them with a lace weight. So I took some drops lace, which is alpaca silk lace yarn, in a dark blue color, and I just marred it with all the other colors. And that's the result. You may remember that if you follow me for a while, I once tried to make a full-on lace shawl in drops lace in that dark blue, and I didn't, I frogged it because I thought it didn't fit the yarn really well. So I had that bunch of lace in my stash, and I used it for that, and I really like the result. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So the pattern that I used as a reference is one of mine. It's the Ori sweater, which is a pullover that was published last spring, and it's a really basic top down v-neck sweater. The original sample has some seat stitch inserts and folded edges, but I wanted something a little bit more basic, so removed the seat stitch and did a 2x2 rib instead, because I didn't think I'd have enough yarn to do the folded ones. So this is what I ended up with. Ori was really a sweater, a design intended to be a basic and to be modified and things like this. So if you want to have a look at it, you can see that it looks very different depending on the type of yarn and idea. So yeah, I am really happy with how it turned out. Really quick and simple knit. It even though like it was supposed to be a leftover thing, some colors, as you can see, are much more in contrast with the rest. Basically, there are some yarns that were speckled hand-dyed yarns, but then I also had some sock yarn, some colorwork yarn here and there, and so I tried to make it seem like it was done on purpose, the patchworky feeling of it. See, for example, here this shoulder is a bit darker, and I tried to add it again here at the bottom and here on the sleeve, so it would look cohesive. Then you have that nice little blue patch here. But yeah, this is the back. And I made all the edges in the same darker shade so that it would look cohesive. And yeah, really nice, easy way to use a lot of leftovers. Yeah, I'm really happy with the result. My mom likes it. She wore it already quite a few times, and yeah, that's it. That's it for all the things I wanted to show you this episode. It was quite a heavy lots of sweaters and big projects, actually. I will see you very soon, actually, for another episode, which will actually be smaller things. I will have a couple of socks to show you. So maybe I should have spread things a little bit more, so that I wouldn't have all the big projects here. And then next episode is going to be only small projects. But that's how we do it. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I wish you a very happy new year. I hope it will be better, that you are safe and taking care of yourself and your families. And yeah, I hope all will be well. And I will see you soon in another video. Have a lovely rest of the day, evening, and see you next time. Bye!